Noji yondaki tskwai lata doni retene wada do gari agesu yeti sota asatanka garoko dano yetine staji hunzagi dano gweguskat ne ganungwe yetine wada do sawi yerda ne tkundon hetset gauns ne agwezini ganyater de gerda dano agwego okwazri alunko sopa yetine wada do yeti sota gunha ne do no da hetsto ne gane gurier da di hawakwe damdawe yaron hetset gazet stasara ne ganungwe damdawe yaron hetset ne because it's Stasser and Asat Nigot Dordigan, Ganyaga Haga, Radinato, Ronata Rooney, Dana Riscarewage. And a Damdawe on Hetzer and Whisk Zio Zage, Guyana Russell Goa, Gonasesne. Retinodado Damdawe on Hetzer, because it's Stasser and Orihuio, Gariwagwari Shunsera, Dana Gaza Stasera, Ne Gayandawana, Ne Ganigurio. Okay, so every time that we get together for council meeting, ceremony, anything of importance, we always have to carry up a Honda Wadekwa first. This is where we identify and give thanks to the things within creation that have created us and the things that we need to continue to sustain us. So we always begin by giving our thanks to the great spiral of creation that when you look up into the nighttime sky, you are not looking into cold, dark, empty, lifeless space the way that non-native science would lead you to believe. No, instead you are looking into the living, vibrant body of our great mother. And so we give thanks to her, to Sky Woman, as it is she who has given us spirit. From there, we give our thanks to the beating heart of our mother earth, to our grandmother moon. It's she who regulates the flow of the lifeblood in all things. And so we give thanks to her, to grandma moon, as it is she who has given us blood. From there, we give our thanks to our mother earth, regardless of what color you are, what language you speak, where you have grown up from our mother earth, or what you imagine divides us, meaning whatever you polarize yourself in this world on sides of war. And so whatever you imagine divides us, that we all come from the same mother, making us all sisters, brothers, all relations, all together. And so we give thanks to her, to our mother earth, as it is she who has given us body. From there, we give our thanks to all the women, from the newest born baby girl to the eldest grandmother, as they carry the sacred title of life giver into the world and are to be honored and respected as such. We give thanks to them, for in this world they give us purpose and direction.
Buenas tardes a todas y todos. Empezamos como siempre con la apertura, con el Ojo de Carihuateco, agradeciendo a la Mujer Cielo por el espíritu que nos da, a nuestra abuelita Luna por la sangre que nos da, a nuestra Mami Tierra por el cuerpo que nos da y a todas las dadoras de vida.
From there, we give our thanks to the power and energy that flows between all things, the spirit that connects us to everything, to every living thing deep within our Mother Earth, to the surface of our Mother Earth, off of the surface into her atmosphere, the microbial life forms that we breathe in every day, the water that we're breathing in right now, off of our Mother Earth into our galactic cell, from our solar cell into our galactic cell, into the body of Sky Woman, that we give thanks to the life-giving force within all strains of life, as it is they that perpetuate.
Y después le damos las gracias a toda la interconectividad de la vida, que en la lengua cañangreja se llama saollera, es todo eso que a la base es femenino, que permite que la existencia sea.
And we identify that it's through this process of the mothers, the life givers that perpetuate life, that when we say they give us purpose and direction, it is the mothers that teach the babies how to be, whatever they are. If you're human, it's our mothers that teach us how to be human. When we go down the path of following the male, and you look at what every person on earth right now polarized in war, that this is what happens when you follow the father's path, that you follow into war.
Y cuando agradecemos a las madres es importante recordar que lo que uno es por lo que nuestra mami es, son siempre las madres las que van a enseñar, a guiar, y si hoy el mundo está como está es porque todo el mundo se polariza en seguir a sus padres y es por eso que hay guerra.
From there we give our thanks to all the waters and medicines and all the shapes and forms they come in. And this is to remind ourselves that you are made 100% of water. So you are medicine, your grandparents are medicine to you, you are medicine to them, to your friends. We are all medicine. And if you are not aware of the medicine that you carry, then your medicine is being misused, going not for what you would want it to be utilized for, but to be misused by someone else, not for anything good, for bad.
Y después damos las gracias a todas las aguas y todas las medicinas y recordar que todos somos medicina los unos para los otros y que hay que estar conscientes de eso para que podamos ser una buena medicina. De lo contrario, nuestra medicina está siendo mal utilizada por algo más.
We ask our ancestors to help us return our mothers back to their natural seat of authority so they can manage all of our people properly once again.
Y le pedimos a nuestros ancestros que nos ayuden a que podamos hacer que nuestras madres vuelvan a su sitio de autoridad que les corresponde.
To help us to return every wampum within the great law of peace back to the hearts and minds of the people.
Y que cada artículo de la ley pueda volver a la gente en sus corazones y sus espíritus.
And this means that upon the body of our Mother Earth, that every human is part of a collective.
Y eso significa que cada humano es parte de una colectividad.
Just like on your body, when you look at your skin, you can't say or separate that the skin on your left arm is separate skin from the skin on your right arm, or separate from the skin on the bottom of your feet.
Como por ejemplo, en el cuerpo no se puede decir que el brazo izquierdo está separado del derecho o que la piel del codo está separada de aquella del pie.
And so just as the skin, whether it's on the bottom of your feet or the top of your head, that it has to do its job where it is.
Y en donde sea, la piel o el órgano tiene que hacer su trabajo.
And this means that the skin all over the body, so every human all over the body of our Mother Earth, is constituted to carry out and to perform the same duties upon our Mother Earth in all the different places.
Y esto significa que cada parte está dedicada a llevar a cabo el trabajo del cuerpo, como cada cuerpo humano hace lo mismo en el cuerpo de nuestra Madre Tierra.
And so the reality of what we're living right now is that everybody, every human, when you compare to like the purpose of the skin on the body, every human is not doing their job. They're doing the exact opposite. Every human, it's like every skin cell in your body just dropping the role that they're supposed to play and going and doing something else.
Y la realidad es que hoy en día nadie está haciendo su trabajo. Es como si todo el mundo dijera, nos vamos de vacaciones y no hacen el trabajo que tienen que hacer.
When people are not doing what they're supposed to, this always will lead to war.
Y cuando la gente no hace lo que debe, siempre va a llevar a la guerra.
You might say, no, just because somebody's not doing something, like let's say if I'm supposed to do something in relation to the life givers and I don't do it, you might say, well, that's not going to lead to war. This is going to mean that the life givers would have to do it for themselves.
Por ejemplo, si yo no estoy haciendo algo en relación a las dadoras de vida, pueden ustedes decir, eso no va a llevar a la guerra, pero si yo no lo hago, van a ser ellas las que lo van a tener que hacer por sí mismas.
When every cell in the skin has to do the same job, meaning staying connected to each other to cover the body, to protect the body.
Y cuando cada célula tiene que estar ligada la una a la otra en la piel para proteger al cuerpo.
If there was one patch, a bunch of cells in, say, on your forearm that decided, oh, they're not going to do that, then that would leave a gap within the skin, a hole within the skin, where the other skin cells would have to end up stretching themselves to make contact with the other cells to fill in the gap that the cells that decided not to do their job have created.
Y si hubiese una que dejara de hacer su trabajo, las demás tendrían que estirarse para hacer el trabajo de esa.
And so this will lead to the individual cells, of course, having to do things that like to double their work, even triple their work, doing things that they're not used to. If I have to take care of right here in my house, and then if you're not doing taking care of it in your house, then I got to go over there to take care of it. Then there's going to be toes that are stepped on. That's going to stretch me out really thin. Less energy to carry out my work in my home, and then to have to do it at your place. And this is putting undue strain, undue pressure on the society, the culture of skin cells.
Y si ustedes no están haciendo su trabajo en su casa y yo voy a tener que ir a hacerlo para ayudarles a ustedes, eso pone estrés en mi propia casa porque voy a tener que dejar mis asuntos para ayudarles y eso entonces pone estrés en todo momento.
When you put pressure on other cells because of something that you are not doing,
Y cuando ponen estrés en otras células como resultado de algo que ustedes no están haciendo,
you will never understand the impact that it has, because you are the one that decides not to do what you are supposed to do, which will impact everyone else.
nunca van a entender lo que ocurre porque son ustedes los que están decidiendo no hacerlo y no pueden entender cuál es el impacto que tiene sobre los demás.
When you think of the skin cells on your body, they got no choice. They all have to do this. They all have to stay connected. They all have to cover your body. They got to stretch. They got to keep out the rain. They got to open up to let out the condensation out of your body.
Cuando piensan en sus células de su piel, ellas no tienen la opción, tienen que abrirse para dejar la condensación salir, cerrarse para proteger la piel.
So if they stop doing that, this would be a conscious choice to no longer do what you're supposed to do. And again, put this pressure on everybody, causing these gaps, causing these strains. Strain will cause, as you know, strain or stress on a person will cause an early death.
Y si decidieran dejar de hacerlo, eso va a provocar estrés y eso inclusive puede provocar que una persona fallezca antes.
It will cause the lifespan that you do have to be unhappy.
Y que el resto de la vida que les queda sea infeliz.
And if you're unhappy, that'll mean that you're not fulfilled.
Y si son infelices, significa que no son plenos.
And not fulfilled will mean that you have a lot of things in your life that you didn't do or get to do, or you basically will have unfinished business.
Y si no son plenos, significa que hicieron o no hicieron muchas cosas y tienen asuntos no resueltos.
Now, people who have unfinished business become easily agitated.
Y la gente que tiene asuntos no resueltos se vuelve agitada fácilmente.
They are they think illogically,
Y piensan de forma ilógica.
because who would have unfinished business?
Porque ¿quién tendría asuntos no resueltos?
So this means that that person is never going to think anything outside of just thinking about themselves.
Y eso significa que la persona no va a pensar en otra cosa aparte de sí mismos.
And so at one time in the body, all the skin cells never thought about themselves. They were thinking about the body and doing the job to protect the body. But the skin cells on the body of our Mother Earth, the equivalent of humans, have all become individuals, let go of their responsibilities, and are now without purpose in the world, except when they're individuals, to just destroy everything.
Y antes las células de la piel que estaban unidas se volvieron individualistas y se dedican a destruir.
And so when people are not doing what they're supposed to, if you're supposed to do something, let's say in the morning, and then somebody else comes along and has to carry out the job in the afternoon. Well, if you didn't do your job in the morning, then that person in the afternoon is going to have double pressure on them.
Y si tú no haces su trabajo en la mañana, la persona que tiene que hacer el trabajo en la tarde va a tener doble presión.
And if you choose to do this of your own free will, then this means obviously that you're a selfish person.
Y si eliges hacer eso por ti mismo, significa que eres una persona egoísta.
That you will not ever detect the pressures, the result of what you have done.
Y que no vas a detectar el resultado de lo que has hecho.
And this is what we're looking at in the world right now today, within how the world is polarized between this so-called war. But this is a hostile takeover of humanity.
Y como vemos hoy que todo el mundo está polarizado en la guerra, en una toma hostil de la humanidad.
And it is centered not so much in a place, it's centered in a way of thinking of what the Israelis thinking in relation to the Palestinian people.
no está centrado en un lugar, sino en una forma de pensar como los israelitas piensan en relación a los palestinos.
There is no one on earth who can deny that poison thinking stemming from that place in so-called Israel, Palestine, that this has spread everywhere on earth, that everybody on earth is polarized one way or another on this.
Y hoy todo el mundo está polarizado de una forma o de otra en este asunto.
So the reality is that all of humanity is having a hostile takeover stemming from the colonial genocide that Britain has inflicted upon Palestine through placing what they call the Jewish people, but it's the Zionists that Britain has placed in Palestine since 1957.
Y la realidad es que son los sionistas que fueron puestos a corona británica en 1947. What year?
What?
What year?
1957.
1957.
And so right now, everybody is having their humanity adjusted. You may think that your daily business is just continuing. It's not so. Your daily business is not continuing. There is this hostile takeover of all humanity that is taking place right from Palestine, what the Zionists are doing upon them, and it's spread around the world. That poison mind is spread through the Jewish people, to where all the Jewish people are polarized around an action that they only look at the response of the people that they have been oppressing.
Y el resultado es que hoy solamente van a estar los israelitas observando el resultado de lo que han estado provocando por estar oprimiendo a la gente ahí.
And so even if you don't want to be involved in that stupidity,
Entonces, a pesar de que ustedes no quieran estar implicados en esa estupidez,
you can identify things within law, like positions of law, to say that, hey, that vote that just happened in the United Nations Security Council to call for a ceasefire. You can say that what the United States done was completely illegal by vetoing that bill, or that bill that they were trying to pass.
por ejemplo, ahora con lo que ocurrió que los Estados Unidos votaron en contra de esa resolución que las Naciones Unidas propone fuego en Palestina.
So if you are in any so-called country,
si ustedes están en un supuesto país democrático,
like here within the corruption of so-called Canada or the so-called United States,
como aquí en las corrupciones del así llamado Canadá o Estados Unidos,
they give you the impression that you're in a democracy that is supposedly run by the people.
Les da la impresión de que está en una democracia que es dirigida por la gente.
But you see the people protesting against what Israel is doing. You see them demanding a ceasefire, but then their government actually supports Israel and doesn't go for a ceasefire. Their so-called government of the United States demands that children keep getting killed.
Y ven como su gente se rebela, quiere que se cese el fuego, pero el gobierno dice no y quieren hacer asesinatos de niños.
So the world is at a place right now equivalent to where the people were back in 1944.
Entonces el mundo está en un punto equivalente al de 1944.
Where the world knew what was going on, that there was whatever they want to call it was happening upon the Jewish people.
En el que el mundo sabía lo que estaba pasando con los judíos.
But did that really happen to the Jewish people the way that they say?
Pero eso le pasó a la gente judía como dicen.
In the first place, you got to think, this must be examined. Why did this happen? Why did Nazis have to rise out of the people democratically to take action against an entire you can't say race of people, but a mindset of people.
Y habría que pensar por qué los nazis tuvieron que levantarse para hacer un genocidio no hacia una raza de gente, sino hacia una gente que pensaba de cierta forma.
When we extrapolate what happened in so-called World War II to the present day, right now,
Y cuando extrapolamos lo que pasó en la Segunda Guerra Mundial al día de hoy,
and you can see that, well, the Palestinians responded to something that the Jews have been doing for the past, since 1957.
puede que se diga que los palestinos, bueno, que se vea que los palestinos responden a algo que les hacían los judíos desde el 57.
So this is what happened to me. I'll give you an example. When I was in grade 7,
Y un ejemplo de lo que me ocurrió a mí en el año cuando estaba en primero de secundaria.
there was an older guy from Ganawagi. He was white, a white family, but still lived in Ganawagi. He was a couple of years older than me, and he used to pick on me.
Había alguien mayor de Canahuague que siempre me molestaba.
We'd all be sitting near the cafeteria in the school, high school, and he would always do this to me. Like he'd be sitting next to me, and he'd just go like that and hit me right in the groin. Oh.
Estaba yo sentado en la cafetería y siempre pasaría y me golpearía.
And I didn't want any problems with this guy. Myself, I was always of the mindset, don't fight with people from Ganawagi. If you're going to fight, fight with the non-native people. Don't fight with your own people.
Y yo siempre pensé, nunca voy a pelear con alguien de Canahuague. Si tienes que pelear, pelea con alguien que no sea de ahí.
But at the time, I didn't realize that most of Ganawagi was actually white people.
Pero en aquel entonces yo no me daba cuenta que la mayoría de Canahuague era de hecho gente que no era de aquí.
So I told my brother about this, and my brother says, well, just hit him back. He said, if he does that, punch him right back.
Y entonces mi hermano le conté esto y él me dijo, bueno, si te pega, dale más duro.
But he says, pay attention. That when he's going to go and do that, don't let him hit you. You hit him first.
Pero me dijo, pon atención porque cuando va a pegarte, no dejes que lo haga y tú dale primero.
So every day he would do that. He would hit me, like just before the bell rings or something, and everybody would get up and go.
Entonces cada día hacía eso, me pegaba.
And so one day, I knew, of course, that he was going to do it because this is what he was doing every day, just like what the Jews are doing to the Palestinian people every day.
Y un día supe que lo iba a hacer como lo hacen los israelitas a los palestinos diario.
And at this point, you'll have some good Jews who will say, hey, no, it's not the Jewish people, it's the Zionists. At this point, I'm going to say no. I was of that mind thinking also. I was saying this just yesterday. But today, I'm not going to say that anymore. This is all the Jewish people on earth who are in support of this. They are not coming out and fighting against it. They are in support of it.
Y ayer yo decía que nada más eran los sionistas y no los judíos, pero hoy ya no lo voy a decir más porque los judíos no están diciendo nada, entonces todos lo están apoyando.
And so all the Palestinian people knew what the Jews would do to them.
Y todos los palestinos sabían lo que los judíos les iban a hacer.
Because they've been receiving it every day since 1957.
Recibido a diario desde 1957.
The world right now is leaving because the Jews call it a war. They say a war on Hamas. It's not a war. Hamas is not fighting a war. You cannot have somebody with a nuclear bomb fighting a war against somebody that's throwing rocks at you.
Y hoy lo llaman una guerra contra el Hamas, pero eso no es una guerra. No se puede comparar a alguien que tiene bombas nucleares contra alguien que les está aventando piedras.
What the Palestinian people are enduring is a colonial genocide.
Y lo que los palestinos están haciendo, sufriendo, es un genocidio colonial.
All the Jews on earth are a part of it.
Y todos los judíos son parte de esto.
Every Jew that I know all sends money to Israel.
Cada judío que conozco le envía dinero a Israel.
All the Jews that I don't know, which is all of them. I only know a few. So all of them send money to Israel.
Y también los que no conozco.
Now, where are they getting this money from?
¿Y de dónde sacan el dinero?
They're not in their own country. They're not in Israel. They're not there being the one that is infringing upon the Palestinian people. they're off in some other country stealing from us to send back energy to Israel to colonial genocide on the Palestinians. So every Jew on earth is an insurgent for colonial genocide.
Entonces cada judío es un insurgente para el genocidio colonial.
Unless they identify and separate themselves from the corruption of what Israel is doing right now.
A menos de que se separen de la corrupción de lo que Israel está haciendo ahorita.
So we do know that almost everywhere around the world where there's these where Jews have gone, there are good Jews and there's bad Jews.
Y sabemos que donde hay judíos hay buenos y hay malos.
But the bad Jews are overpowering, and it's their thinking that is imposing into rational thought, into logic thought.
Pero son los judíos los que están imponiendo, los que no tienen el pensamiento racional.
You're seeing in the discussions that I have posted and the people that who are discussing there, Jewish people, people who support the Jews, Palestinians, people who support the Palestinians, you see the same mentality in all the Jews, in all the who support them.
Porque he visto la misma mentalidad en todos los judíos que apoyan la guerra.
And that's where, again, they all say, they go back to just, what was that, 2 months ago or whenever this so-called Hamas took this action of going and kidnapping, I don't know how many hundreds of people.
Y todos se refieren al hecho de que Hamas secuestró no sé cuánta gente hace un par de meses.
When you think of the last, since 1957, well, what did the Jews do? They kidnapped people, put them in jail, and left them there without charging them, without having any just cause, but left them there. So they kidnapped people already. The Jews done this.
Y cuando piensan en 1957, son los judíos los que hicieron esto.
But the Palestinian people released the Jews that they kidnapped.
Pero los palestinos liberaron a los judíos que secuestraron.
It was their intent.
Y esa era su intención.
But the Jews never had the intent of releasing the Palestinian people that they kidnapped and threw in their jails.
Pero los judíos nunca tenían la intención de liberar a los palestinos.
And like I said, everyone on earth just keeps referring to, oh, look at what the Palestinians did. Look at what Hamas done 2 months ago. This identifies original thought in every Jewish person, in every person who supports what the Jews are doing in Israel against the colonial invasion.
Algo que están apoyando, es decir, siguen apoyando esta invasión colonial.
I forgot where I was now. We're having a hard time focusing here today.
Tenemos una gran dificultad en enfocarnos el día de hoy.
Yeah. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to cut it short here. It's hard to communicate like this. So we were waiting for Bruno and Susan, but we're not even sure if Bruno is coming. There was a communication. What?
He's just connecting.
Oh, okay. So we're just going to go through this communication and we're going to call it a day.
Entonces estábamos esperando a Bruno y a Susan porque había algo que ambos tenían que platicar y se están conectando en este momento.
Okay, so is Susan there?
She's connecting.
All right. Okay, this is what we were waiting for earlier. We were just gonna not even sit here and talk. We were just gonna come on and like close up for the day because there's not a good energy today.
Entonces, hace rato detectamos que había una energía bien negativa, entonces ni siquiera nos íbamos a conectar, pero habíamos quedado en vernos con Susan y con Bruno, entonces ahora que están aquí podemos hacer este encuentro.
So today we were just killing time waiting for Susan and Bruno to get here. Now they're here, so it's just to accommodate their communication today.
Entonces se trata de acomodar la comunicación aquí.
Okay, so there's the platform. I don't know who wants to start this conversation, but it's between Susan and Bruno.
Entonces es una conversación entre Susan y Bruno, entonces se inicia la conversación. Adelante.
I guess I'll start. My name is Susan Mashike. I'm the daughter of Lillian, who carries the name Mashike and the clan Mashike. I'm the granddaughter of Helen Samuels and the great-granddaughter of Mary Petoskey.
Susan se presenta de forma matrilineal, mencionando a su mami, a su abuelita, y que es del clan de la tortuga.
Yes, well, today been looking forward to speaking with you, Bruno. Several months ago. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Contigo, Bruno. Go ahead, Susan.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. Several months ago, I started what I call a mending board, and I've been using photographs to heal. And
Porque hace varios Susan inició un proceso que le llamó el tablero de sanación y utilizaba fotografías para poder ayudar a sanar.
I learned this, I discovered this when I was a little girl.
Lo descubrió cuando era una niña.
And it's really held true all this time.
Y le ayudó mucho tiempo.
I am now 74.
Y ahora Susan tiene 74 años.
I've been concentrating on different areas, especially Alaska.
Y se ha estado concentrando en diferentes regiones, especialmente en Alaska.
In the course of what I do, I've had the assistance of our grandmother.
Y en lo que hace, por supuesto, ha tenido la ayuda de nuestra gran abuela.
To infuse blood as part of the healing process.
Para fundir sangre que sea parte de este proceso de sanación.
I discovered that it was very difficult for me to even get to Alaska.
Y descubrió que en este proceso era inclusive bien difícil o casi imposible para ella llegar a alcanzar la región de Alaska.
It was very difficult for our grandmother to infuse blood from the bottom up.
Y también era muy difícil para abuelita Luna el poder infundir esta sangre desde abajo hasta arriba.
In the beginning, what came out of one of the first times I approached Alaska was coming in contact with a bald eagle.
Y una de las primeras veces que sí logró entrar en contacto con la región de Alaska, entró en contacto con un águila de cabeza y cola blanca.
That bald eagle was tied to a rope.
Y esa águila estaba amarrada a una cuerda
Coming from the land itself.
que venía de la tierra.
It was struggling ferociously to free himself from that rope.
Y con todas sus fuerzas y energías estaba tratando de liberarse de esa cuerda.
And the process of that, I helped him free himself from that rope.
Y en ese proceso, Susan le ayudó a liberarse de esa cuerda.
He was only partially alive by that time.
Y en ese momento ya estaba solamente parcialmente vivo.
When I discovered this, I suspended his body in midair.
Y cuando descubrió esto, suspendió su cuerpo así en el medio del aire
And wrapped a white cloth around his body.
y le envolvió un páñamo blanco alrededor de su cuerpo
And began the healing process of his body.
y empezó el proceso de sanación de su cuerpo.
I found myself going into a trance.
Y Susan de repente se encontró entrando hacia un trance.
I don't know what happened during that period of time, but I was out for about an hour.
Y no sabe qué pasó en ese periodo de tiempo, pero entró en ese trance como por una hora.
When I came back into consciousness, I didn't even think there would be a problem in terms of getting to the rest of Alaska, but as it turned out, over a period of time, it got very difficult for me to even get our grandmother to infuse blood. She had a hard time doing it. And I found that something from underneath the ground itself was harboring something monstrous.
Y cuando volvió en la conciencia, se dio cuenta que estaba debilitada y que también la abuelita Luna tenía una gran dificultad en llegar de nuevo a infundir esta sangre. Le costaba mucho trabajo. Entonces se dio cuenta que había algo en lo profundo o subterráneo de la tierra que estaba ocurriendo.
So I've come to you, if you can, find out what is there.
Entonces la pregunta, Bruno, es si tú pudieses saber, ir a ver de qué se trata, qué es lo que está allá abajo.
The only thing I've been able to detect is it's coming from underneath the land itself.
A
Porque
ver,
lo único que ella pudo detectar es que venía de abajo de la tierra misma.
So again, I've come to you for your help
a
if you
ver,
can help.
Entonces de nuevo viene hacia ti para ver de qué forma tú podrías ayudar.
All my relations.
Y habla estas palabras que se usan por todas sus relaciones. Adelante, Bruno.
sí, a ver, nada más, repítame lo último, lo que me preguntaron, porque exactamente en ese momento aquí hicieron ruido y no escuché bien.
So Bruno is asking if I can repeat again what it was said at the end, because it was just at that time that there was some noise around him, so he couldn't listen properly to the question. So I will just repeat the question, Susan, if I got it right. What you want to know is if he could go in his capacities of healer to see what is it that is underground in Alaska, right?
Yes, absolutely, exactly.
Entonces, Bruno, lo que dice Susan es que si tú en tus capacidades de sanador pudieses ir a ver qué es lo que está ocurriendo en Alaska, en la parte subterránea de la Tierra, porque es ahí en donde ella no pudo ir con su energía y que detectó que hay algo que está ocurriendo, pero no sabe. Que abuela Luna tuvo mucho problema en alcanzar ese lugar, entonces ella quiere saber si tú pudieses ayudar con tus capacidades.
Oh, ya, pues nunca lo he hecho, no sabría decirlo. Sería la primera vez que lo intento.
I have never done something like that, so even you can detect his laugh like a little bit nervous because he will be okay. That might be, or that will have to be the first time that I'm gonna have to try it.
Neither have I.
Y dice, no te preocupes porque yo tampoco lo había hecho antes.
Sí. Y si no soy yo, yo creo que me puedo apoyar con... Hay dos abuelas que yo creo que me pueden ayudar a ver si entre los tres podemos notar algo.
And Bruno says, if it is not me, I'm thinking of other two grandmothers that if it is not me alone, maybe the three of us can do something to see what can we detect.
Wonderful.
Dice Susan que eso sería maravilloso.
Sí, lo único es que necesito entender bien lo que se está buscando. ¿Abajo de Alaska hay algún problema en el subsuelo o qué es lo que necesito observar bien? Porque no he entendido.
So Bruno says, but I would still need to really completely comprehend what's the issue because, okay, let's say what I get until now is like, I gotta go and try to detect what is it on the underground of Alaska, but why is it? Or like, how come it is in that circumstance? Or what is other context or background that I can get so I can really understand why or what for am I doing this?
Well, in the course of my healing of our Mother Earth, when I came upon Alaska, that's when the eagle appeared.
Entonces, Susan, lo que explicaba un poquito hace rato del tablero, si escuchaste, Bruno, es que ella decidió que iba a ayudar a sanar a nuestra Madre Tierra. Entonces fue en varios lugares de la región de su tierra, sanando rupturas de ADN, cuestiones así. Entonces, cuando fue bajando de sur a norte, fue subiendo de sur a norte. Entonces, cuando llegó a la región de Alaska, ahí fue donde se le empezó a dificultar el trabajo.
Ajá. Oh. ¿Y el ADN es el de la Tierra o de quién es el ADN?
Ajá. And Bruno is asking, and the DNA that you are healing, is it the DNA of our Mother Earth or whose DNA are you healing?
DNA of our mother.
Sí, el de ADN de nuestra Madre Tierra.
Tell Bruno that I'm looking at Alaska because the eagle came up and that what led me to look at this more closely. And the only thing that I could detect was that the source of this eagle's demise was coming from underneath the land itself.
Entonces, la forma de curación que ella hace sobre el ADN de nuestra Madre Tierra va a concentrarse y le van a venir imágenes que le indican hacia qué lugar o qué territorio enfocarse. Entonces, ¿cómo fue que ella llegó a Alaska? Es porque vio la imagen de esta águila que estaba amarrada de su pata con una cuerda hacia la tierra. Y entonces se dio cuenta que era justamente una fuerza subterránea o abajo de la tierra lo que estaba impidiendo que el águila pudiese volar libre.
Muy bien. Y hay que investigar entonces, por eso, qué es lo que hay abajo de Alaska que está impidiendo que la vida se dé bien.
And so if
Es lo que entiendo.
If he gets it correctly, the aim of this would be to really go deep in the earth to try and find out what is it that is making it hard for life to thrive over there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Sí, exactamente, Bruno.
Bueno, pues sí lo empiezo a revisar. Yo intento por mi parte y si no, me apoyo en estas dos abuelas.
He says, okay, well then, so I'm going to have to start trying it out and I'm going to start trying it by myself. And if I don't have any response or that I don't see nothing, then I'm going to go search for the support of these two grandmas.
I'm very grateful.
Dice que te agradece mucho por eso.
Muy bien, me parece excelente.
So it's like, thank you, and I very good, and I appreciate this challenge.
And tell Bruno that I think he understands more than he realizes.
Y dice Susan, Bruno, que tú debes de, no te das cuenta, pero que seguro entiendes mucho más de lo que tú mismo crees.
Sí, es probable.
We're both going into uncharted territory.
Porque ambos vamos, dice Susan, en territorios completamente desconocidos.
Ujú,
Okay,
cierto.
And he says, yeah, that's true.
okay, Bruno, I'm going to share a little bit of information with you to give you a little bit of background of a few things that have been happening in that region.
Entonces dices tú, Bruno, que para ayudarte también te va a dar un poquito de información de lo que él ha estado observando en las noticias, de lo que ha estado ocurriendo particularmente en esta región.
Okay, so can you see that image? Is it shared?
Y pregunta si todo el mundo puede ver esa imagen.
Okay,
A ver, déjame ver. Espera.
let me make a little adjustment here. How do I zoom out on this?
Oh, it's like gray, like it's not activated. It's on the bottom left, but
Yeah.
oh, there you go.
Yeah, but I gotta do that manually. Okay, this is a couple of years ago. I think it's about 2.5 years ago in the Kamchatka River Basin. There was a report of that all marine life was dead on the ocean floor there, on the shores. They washed up on the shore. It was on the bottom of the ocean. They found all marine life dead.
Entonces dice, si ves la imagen, que en esta parte en donde está rodeando con su manita, ahí encontraron que toda la vida marina en lo que se llama el río Kamchatka había muerto. Eso fue hace aproximadamente unos 2 años, dice.
Okay, so that's here. And as you see, this line right here, this is the break in the DNA.
Entonces, el lado izquierdo, donde es el río Kamchatka, es en lo que se conoce hoy como el territorio de Rusia, pero si tú ves esta línea directa que lleva hacia Alaska, es exactamente esa la ruptura del ADN que Susan está tratando de sanar.
If you see the curvature of this line of DNA,
Porque si ves la curvatura de esa línea de ADN,
then you know that here where it reaches to the Kamchatka River, this was supposed to be reaching over towards the North Pole.
se ve entonces a partir de aquí del río Kamchatka cómo se vio en lugar de
Que me hago para acá porque pierdo el internet.
irse para arriba.
What do you say?
He's moving locally where he's at because he loses his internet connection very easily.
Okay. So here where it reaches over a couple of years ago, this is where all the marine life was found dead on the ocean floor.
Entonces aquí en donde están las bolitas rojas es en donde se encontró la vida marina muerta hace 2 años.
And then as we know in the last couple of years, there's been quite a few volcanic and earthquake activity in this region.
Y como sabemos, en este otro lado, en lo que se conoce hoy como Alaska, ha habido mucha actividad tanto volcánica como sísmica en esta región.
And then just this year, scientists discovered that all around this western coast of so-called Alaska,
Y este año los científicos descubrieron que toda esta costa del oeste del así llamado Alaska,
that there was over a billion white snow crabs that disappeared.
hubo más de 1 billón de cangrejos de nieve, así les llaman, que desaparecieron, que fallecieron.
Caused such an impact that they canceled this year's crab fishery harvest, whatever.
Y causó tal impacto que este año cancelaron todas las posibilidades de pesca en la región.
And then just a couple of weeks ago, this is not even a couple of weeks ago, I think it's a week and a half ago, right here in this region, there is a landslide.
Y hace un par de semanas, o si no, una semana y media, aquí en esta parte hubo un deslizamiento.
Gracias.
But a couple of weeks ago, this is still, I think it was November, the end of November, which means in Alaska at November, this is winter time. There should not be a landslide in wintertime.
Y fue en pleno noviembre, en donde debería de hacer más frío, entonces no tiene ningún sentido que haya un deslizamiento de tierra en esa época.
Now, people have said that because of the Earth's currents here, that it brings warm ocean currents, and they said, well, that's probably why that there was a landslide. But there's always warm ocean currents here every year, and there hasn't been a landslide here last year or the year before or before that.
Y hay gente que dice, bueno, esto es debido a las corrientes aquí en el Pacífico que siempre van hacia allá, entonces llevaron agua caliente, pero esas corrientes siempre existen, siempre están ahí.
Now, we take this as serpent movement.
Y esto lo consideramos como movimiento serpentino.
And like was said, that this strain of DNA, clearly it was supposed to wrap over and it would reach over to about here. Right towards the North Pole.
Y como dijimos, esta parte del ADN, can you do the movement again? Debió de haber ido para acá arriba y alcanzar hacia lo que es el Polo Norte.
And so at the same time this year, there is movement in this strain of DNA on the eastern seaboard.
Y en este momento hay de nuevo movimiento aquí en el ADN de la parte del lado este.
And it has movement right down into Dixpalam.
Y genera movimiento hacia lo que se llama Tishbalam.
And what we have seen is it's serpent movement up here.
Y lo que hemos visto es que es movimiento serpentino aquí.
And so there is at the same time, not far away in Iceland, as you know, the volcanic activity that's happening there. So it's on both sides of the continent where the DNA is, the serpent is shaking the DNA.
Y esto lleva aunado a lo que se sabe que hay actividad sísmica en Islandia, entonces es saber que hay actividad de movimiento del ADN.
On the eastern seaboard, the movement of DNA doesn't have any kind of negative activity. There is no kind of, nothing negative reported, like a billion white snow crabs disappearing.
Y en el lado este no hay nada negativo reportado, como por ejemplo millones de cangrejos muertos.
But on this side, this serpent movement has the negative activity of what we identified, what was there in the Kamchatka River Basin.
Pero de este lado está lo negativo que identificamos en el río Kamchatka aquí,
Where all the sea life was dead.
donde falleció toda esta vida marina.
And then this year, where over a billion white snow crabs disappeared.
Y de este lado en donde desaparecieron billones de cangrejos.
So both this Western DNA on the West Coast and the Eastern DNA on the East Coast, both of them connect here in the land of Dixpalam. This is where they cross over.
Y la costa oeste y la costa este, aquí en este hemisferio, se cruzan aquí en el territorio de Tishbalam.
So this means that if you think of a thread in a shirt that becomes frayed, you know, a piece of thread sticking out, if you pull that, you know that it's going to have effects on the whole fabric, that it's going to pull the thread all the way through the fabric.
Y esto significa que es un poco como si tienes una camisa y un hilo se empieza a deshilachar, si lo jalas, pues va a deshacer toda la camisa eventualmente.
So this movement that is happening here on the Western DNA and the movement on the Eastern DNA is being affected by something that is happening here within Dixpalam.
Entonces, todo lo que ocurre en la costa este y en la este va a tener repercusiones directas aquí en el territorio de Tishbalam.
Okay, so basically what we are seeing, what we are detecting is serpent movement that is translates into large movements of land.
Entonces lo que detectamos es movimiento serpentino que se transfiere o más bien se traduce en movimientos masivos de tierra.
And we'll say even at a rate or at a pace of that would seem astonishing to us.
Incluso a un grado que parecería impresionante.
Where like if you are, let's say at night you're sleeping, you're laying on one side.
Como por ejemplo estás dormido, te acuestas de un lado.
Every cell in your body being asleep is used to being now sedentary in that position.
Y cada célula mientras duerme está acostumbrada a estar sin movimiento de ese lado.
But as you know, in the middle of the night, we might just have this idea or something just happened to our body to want to turn over. And we roll over and every cell in our body that was sedentary for that time, all of a sudden becomes disrupted and moves completely diametrically opposite to what it was.
Pero ahora en medio de la noche, si te quieres mover, pues todas las células van a tenerse que acostumbrar o más bien despertar al movimiento brusco.
So what we're seeing in movement of the serpent,
Y lo que vemos en el movimiento serpentino
it's a movement of weaving the fabric of reality.
es un movimiento que teje la realidad de la creación.
And so people have always followed that serpent. Life has always followed because wherever it went, it connected us to something else. Land was created. Reality was created. People were created.
Y la vida siempre se mueve en relación a esa serpiente y es así como la vida y la gente son creadas.
And so this is what we are detecting right now, that there is a large serpent movement that is about to happen.
Y lo que detectamos entonces es que hay un movimiento serpentino mayor que está a punto de ocurrir.
Where we could be thinking that, hey, the world, the way that the world is geographically right now, the way that we know the world map to be, we could be in that same scenario of sleeping at night and every cell being sedentary that way, but all of a sudden turning over to be something completely different, entirely opposite.
Porque podríamos estar en ese escenario del cuerpo que está durmiendo de un lado y que de repente va a tener que voltearse del otro lado y ser algo opuesto, diferente.
So we see serpent movement as being highly, almost like a bureaucratic movement, where every little movement is carefully analyzed, data is crunched to see if on this side, if you move 1 ounce, on the other side, you got to replace an ounce or whatever, you know, like to shift around that. The serpent movement takes into consideration and affects every cell on our Mother Earth.
Y este movimiento es casi tan a detalle y específico que porque va a afectar cada célula de nuestra madre tierra.
So it's just things like that that we have been picking up, the physical stuff that we're aware of.
Y hemos estado alertas a ver estas noticias y estas son de las que estamos conscientes.
And then at the same time, I'm going to go back and share that image again, sorry.
Y al mismo tiempo, déjame comparto la imagen de nuevo rápidamente.
At the same time, as we know what has just been happening this past week,
Lo que pasó esta semana pasada
is that throughout this region
es que en esta región
has been high activity of aurora borealis,
hay una actividad incrementada de auroras boreales.
even to where the effects of it visually has come way into this area, to where even where we're at, we were able to see it.
Al grado de que hasta donde nos encontramos nosotros pudimos verlo.
Now, I remember when I was a kid, I used to see aurora borealis, the northern lights. We used to see that almost every night here, you know, in the wintertime.
Y cuando yo era niño, yo me acuerdo que veíamos auroras boreales en el invierno aquí.
And I remember seeing it also in the summertime.
Y hasta recuerdo haberlas visto en el verano.
So at one time when I was a kid, so that's about 50 years ago, that we used to have a lot of aurora borealis activity through this zone,
Entonces teníamos bastante actividad de auroras boreales aquí.
which would mean like up throughout the surrounding North Pole.
lo que significa alrededor del Polo Norte.
We haven't seen that. I haven't seen that in decades
Y no hemos visto esto en décadas,
until this past week,
hasta esta semana pasada,
where it's been high aurora borealis activity throughout this area.
donde ha habido un montón de actividad de auroras boreales en esta área.
And what is aurora borealis? We know that this is electrically charged particles.
Y sabemos que las auroras boreales son partículas eléctricamente cargadas
Affecting when coming into contact with our Mother Earth's electromagnetic field.
que entran en contacto con el campo magnético de nuestra madre tierra.
So it's basically two energies that are generally not there or haven't been there for a while.
Que a la base son dos energías que tenían que estar ahí
That are being exposed to each other.
y que de repente son expuestas la una a la otra.
So to put this into context, like understandable for everybody.
Y para que esto sea puesto en contexto,
It's like when you go to boost a car, if your battery's dead, somebody else comes, they got to connect these two powers, these two ends of the positive and negative, creating an energy flow, a field of energy.
es como cuando la batería de tu carro está muerta y alguien tiene que venir a pasarte corriente y se tiene que conectar la positiva y la negativa en los cables para generar un círculo de energía.
So this tells us the moment that those two energies connect, it causes something else to happen. Your car can then start.
Y eso hace que tu carro pueda prender.
So these energies connecting right now, made clear to us, exemplified through the aurora borealis,
Y eso es el ejemplo de las auroras boreales.
is the equivalent of connecting these two powers, which means that something else is about to be activated.
El poder de conectar estas dos fuerzas negativa y positiva que va a activar algo más.
And so there is something within the earth that are in the area what Susan is identifying of Alaska.
Y cuando Susan identifica lo que está ocurriendo en Alaska,
That this here, this section, this is the broken DNA. This is where the DNA went wrong.
esta sección aquí es la parte de la ruptura del ADN, es en donde fue por otro camino.
When we follow the path of DNA, it comes directly out of the so-called South Pole, the Antarctic.
Porque cuando seguimos el camino del ADN viene directo del polo sur de la Antártica.
And like all dualities, it has to start from a singularity.
Y como cada dualidad tiene que empezar de una singularidad.
And so in the first place, what the Antarctic is, this is a blueprint to the human. This is the spinal column and the human brain.
La Antártica es el cerebro humano, la columna vertebral.
And it's what gives birth, it's the blueprint to everything that will be born upon our Mother Earth.
Y es lo que da la huella digital, digamos, a todo lo que van a hacer en nuestra madre tierra.
And so right here in this loop, this is what all of us experience in our 9-moon gestation.
Y esto es lo que todo mundo experimenta en nuestra gestación de 9 lunas.
That for approximately 7 moons, we are, as a baby in the womb of our mother, we are basically, we're kind of upright.
Porque en, digamos, 7 lunas de estar dentro del vientre materno, estamos básicamente sentados, digamos.
And that at approximately 7 moons, you, me, all of us, every baby in the womb of the mother turns upside down to be ready to be born.
Y aproximadamente a esa 7ª luna, tú, yo, todos los bebés nos hemos dado la vuelta para poder estar cabeza abajo para nacer.
And then it's after that turning upside down, which is also a serpent movement.
Y es después de voltearse, que también es un movimiento serpentino.
As you know, like an alligator or a crocodile that grabs its prey, that what it does is it puts them in that death spiral, spins them around.
Como un cocodrilo o un lagarto que va a morder a su presa y los va a poner en una espiral de muerte, los va a agarrar literalmente así.
Now, of course, whatever the prey is, it's the end of their life.
Bueno, para la presa es el fin de su vida.
But for the crocodile, it is a point of evolution where that prey gives the crocodile more life, more energy to be able to move on.
Pero para el cocodrilo es un punto de evolución porque esa presa le va a dar más energía para evolucionar.
And so this is the reason why every human follows the serpent in our gestation process of turning upside down, basically rotating to take us to that point of evolution into the next realm.
Y es por eso que va a haber este giro a nuestra séptima luna para poder, es decir, crear la evolución.
And so here, at the very tip of Turtle Island,
Y aquí en la punta de la isla de la Tortuga,
this is where we emerged out of the waterverse, the womb of our mother.
es en donde emergemos del agua verso, del vientre materno.
And this is where physical matter started to take form. And this is where the first of the duality, the first strain of DNA begins right here on the west coast of so-called South America.
Y es ahí en donde el la primera hélice del ADN surge aquí en la costa oeste de lo que se llama América del Sur.
Okay, so the DNA has formed the first strain of life, which is the southern hemisphere.
Y el ADN creó esta primera hebra de vida que es el América del Sur.
Which, since it is the first, it is the primary, the female, the life giver. So so-called South America is female.
Y como es la primera, es la dadora de vida. Entonces, América del Sur es femenina.
But of course, everything has a duality, so it has male in there. But the southern hemisphere is female. The northern hemisphere is male.
Pero por supuesto todo es una dualidad, entonces también hay masculino ahí, pero el hemisferio sur es femenino y el hemisferio norte es masculino.
And so male is created out of female.
Y lo masculino es creado a partir de lo femenino.
So out of this first strand of DNA right here in so-called Venezuela today at Maracaibo, this is where that electrical charge of non-stop lightning forever has split the DNA, causing the turnover right here for the male to emerge out of the water. This is where the serpent, the crocodile, turned over like this.
Y es aquí en donde hoy se conoce como Venezuela, Maracaibo, que en este lago hay una tormenta eléctrica de rayos constante, que con esa carga magnética se genera el quiebre del ADN, entonces se genera a partir de lo femenino el masculino emerge por debajo del agua, lo mismo, en el mismo movimiento serpentino en el que el cocodrilo da vuelta a su presa.
But the north has the duality within it. So it is male, but it's the west that is male, and it's the east that is female.
Y el norte es masculino, pero también tiene su dualidad. Entonces, hacia el oeste es masculino y hacia el este es femenino.
But it's right here in this area, as you can see, this light area. This is where there is a trauma that has occurred.
Pero como ves la luz aquí en esta área, es aquí en donde ocurrió un trauma.
And this reaches down right into Mayan territory.
Huichol. Y esto va aquí hasta territorio Huichol Maya.
It may be whoever say, even right here at the center, you know, it's more like in the so-called United States, but that isn't where it starts. That's the center. Where it starts is way down here, way even before where you see the lighter trauma on the earth.
Y bueno, aquí el punto central es en lo que se conoce como hoy Estados Unidos, tal vez territorio Hopi o algo así, pero ahí es ya en medio, donde empieza realmente es inclusive abajo, en donde todavía se verde, que es el istmo.
So it caused the two strands of DNA, the male on the west and the female on the east, to just the gap to just keep getting wider and wider.
Entonces, el oeste, que es masculino, y el este, que es femenino, hizo que la brecha entre ellos se amplificara cada vez más.
And so the Eastern DNA was ready to connect over here. This is where they found the serpent of Tiktaalik from thousands of years ago, and there is people found in this area.
Y el ADN del lado oeste podía completamente, estaba listo para conectar, y es aquí en donde encontraron a la serpiente Tiktaalik.
They were following the eastern seaboard serpent.
Estaban siguiendo la serpiente del lado este.
And it was supposed to meet the western serpent, the western DNA, because it was supposed to flip over and meet here, right in the center.
Y estaba esperando encontrarse con el ADN del oeste, porque de aquí debió de haber subido hacia al polo norte.
But this is the break. It's a break of male dominance.
Pero es aquí en donde hay el quiebre, y este es un quiebre de
And-
dominación masculina.
And so the end result is this, is that on our Mother Earth, the only people, the only land that is connected to the South Pole and the North Pole are the people of Turtle Island. Just us. We are the only ones that are connected to reality.
Y el resultado final es que solamente esta tierra del hemisferio de la isla de la Tortuga, que está conectado a la tierra tanto del polo sur como del polo norte.
This you'll see the 7 strands of DNA just going haywire, breaking off and just going crazy, disappearing back into the earth.
Y aquí vas a ver cómo esta hebra del ADN se quiebra, y hay 7 quiebres que llegan hasta su desaparición en el agua.
And so all of this that wasn't supposed to happen is a corruption upon the earth.
Y todo esto no debió de haber pasado, entonces es una corrupción.
So that means everything that resulted from this break of DNA, which is everything here in so-called Europe, Asia, Africa, all of that, this is all a corruption.
Y significa entonces que todo lo que está en esto que se llama Europa, Asia, África, fue afectado por esa corrupción.
Except for this right here, so-called modern day Australia.
A la excepción de aquí, que se llama Australia al día de hoy.
Modern day Australia is, or Australia, is where the amygdala is.
Porque en Australia es en donde se encuentra la amígdala.
And so you can see the male dominance went crazy, out of whack, not being in balance to connect with the other side, and it went towards the insanity, meaning amygdala thinking. That means for us to devolve into basically just war thought, war mentality.
Y esto significa que la dominación masculina involucionó hasta llegar a la amígdala, lo que le dio un pensamiento puramente de sobrevivencia.
Okay, so this is basically as much information that we can give you on the circumstance.
Entonces, esto es como para darte la mayor información, para ayudarte, ¿no?, en el contexto, para las circunstancias,
In order to be able to look to determine trajectory.
para poder determinar la trayectoria.
So we got to know the past. If we're pulling a bow and arrow, the past would be the hand behind us that's pulling the string.
Porque si estamos agarrando un arco y una flecha, el pasado sería la mano que está agarrando la cuerda.
The present would be where our eye is.
El presente es en donde se encuentra nuestros.
And of course,
vista.
the future is where we are aiming.
Y el futuro es hacia donde apuntamos.
So we can look from where we're seeing and believe that that's our trajectory, but we have to know where the past is to know precisely where our trajectory is.
Entonces podemos ver hacia dónde nos dirigimos, pero hay que entender el pasado para comprender la trayectoria.
So this, and I'm sure that other people, like if there was people with us from who actually live in Alaska, they could probably tell us some other small things that aren't related in the news.
Y si hubiese gente que vive en Alaska, estoy seguro que nos podría contar cosas que no vemos en las noticias.
And this also means everybody, absolutely everyone, whatever is detected, picked up all along the western coast, because that's the strain of DNA that's under correction right now.
Y esto significa que en la costa oeste, porque es ahí en donde está la corrección en este momento,
As you know, this year, Bruno, that first time ever, there's hurricanes all of a sudden in the West Coast hitting Mexico City.
como sabemos, Bruno, este año fue el primer año en el que hubo tormentas tropicales, huracanes que vinieron del Pacífico y que llegaron hasta la Ciudad de México.
Where the reality of what makes hurricanes possible doesn't exist in the Pacific. Is that the Pacific?
Ya,
Yeah.
siendo que en realidad las condiciones para generar huracanes en el Pacífico no existen.
When we understand how hurricanes are created,
Cuando entendemos cómo son creados los huracanes,
we know that it really only is created in the Caribbean because of that you have these warm, shallow waters and other cool ocean currents and warm air all clashing at the same time here.
sabemos que es ocasionado por estas tierras de superficie baja. Can you make the movement again? Esta tierra de superficie baja que va a ser caliente, que va a venir con corrientes frías de agua por abajo y por arriba con corrientes de agua caliente.
So this actual, geez, what is this thing? Okay, this actual geography here of it being shallow waters clashing with cooler winds, cooler currents, all of that is what makes hurricanes possible.
Y esta geografía es lo que hace que haya huracanes.
As we know, on this side, there is not that shallow water.
Porque sabemos que de este lado no hay aguas de superficie alta, digamos.
It's actually colder water. It's the exact opposite of what forms hurricanes here in the Caribbean. Exact opposite conditions forming a reverse hurricane where it's hot on the bottom, cool on the top. Here it's cool on the bottom, hot on the top.
Sino que son aguas profundas que deberían de estar frías, pero ahora hay agua fría abajo y caliente arriba.
So the fact that these hurricanes coming from here this year, well, what? There's already two of them. Had that happen?
Y ya ocurrieron 2 huracanes aquí, ¿no? ¿Cierto?
What it tells me is that there is this the serpent activity, the duality that is happening at the same time. At the same time, there's regular normal hurricanes that we all know about happening in the Caribbean. At the same time, there's these reverse hurricanes happening now in the Atlantic, the Pacific, sorry.
Entonces hay esta dualidad de que mientras hay menos huracanes en el Atlántico, ahora hay más en el Pacífico.
Okay, so basically what it comes down to is that there's some huge serpent activity that humans can actually detect. We can actually follow it.
Y bueno, en conclusión, hay una gran actividad serpentina que los humanos pueden detectar y por lo tanto seguir.
Okay, so basically that's all the information that I have to complement to what Susan had identified.
Entonces necesitaba dar toda esta información, darte lo más posible en complemento a lo que Susan acaba de compartir.
Unless within the people who are gathered, if there is something pertinent also that you are aware of that you can share.
A menos de que la gente que está reunida aquí también tenga algo que desee compartir. Well, what about the Blackboda serpent that was found and the one in the Chichen Itza pyramid?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Y le digo, Bruno, que también te acuerdas que hablamos de cómo se había descubierto esta cabeza en Chichen Itza, que era de la serpiente emplumada, y justo una semana o 2 antes se había compartido en las noticias que habían descubierto una serpiente también en el territorio de Dakota del Sur. Entonces, son como mensajes de la tierra misma, ¿no? Que dice, hay algo que está ocurriendo con este movimiento serpentino.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying to Bruno that if he recalls, there was also this headed serpent that they found in Chichen Itza, and also the serpent that they found in the Lakota territory, meaning that the earth itself is saying, you know, by releasing those objects at those times, that there's a movement that is being indicated by herself.
Yeah, the movement, not the movement, but the serpent that they found here in the Black Hills of North Dakota, this was about 2 months ago.
Porque la serpiente que encontraron en la Cota del Norte fue hace como 2 meses.
Anyways, we talked about that on a Reconstitution, which was on a Sunday, and then the very next day on a Monday, this is where we heard that they released the information of that they found the feathered serpent in Chichen Itza.
Porque hablamos de esto y justo al día siguiente se sacó en las noticias que habían descubierto la cabeza de la serpiente emplumada en Chichen Itza.
And at the same time, within the same time, this is when we heard about the discovery of the serpent up here in this area, right around here. It was here.
Y es al mismo tiempo que escuchamos el descubrimiento de las serpientes de aquí, del Tiktaalik.
And then we found out that this Tiktaalik that they found here, that it was it's on display here in the university, not the university, but in Philadelphia, yeah.
Y luego nos enteramos que el Tiktaalik está en exhibición se dice, sí, en el Museo de Filadelfia.
And here in this area, just not far away from Philadelphia in Ohio, is the Serpent Mound.
Y no tan lejos de ahí, en Ohio, se encuentran las fauces de la serpiente.
And then we heard, within the same time, of let's see, where am I? Is that being shared?
Yeah.
I'm sharing the wrong thing. At the same time, we heard that scientists discovered a people right here, remnants of them from thousands of years ago, and they had within their artifacts that there is a rendition of the serpent.
Y aquí encontraron también gente que había hecho representaciones de la serpiente.
So these people that were found right here, they were hunting the serpent that was found here, discovered here. They're all in the same region. They were following it.
Lo que significa que la gente de aquí cazaba la serpiente, la seguían.
So here's the Serpent Mound, Ohio.
Y esta es la fauce de la serpiente en Ohio.
So that's not very far from where they got the Tiktaalik, the serpent, right now in Pennsylvania,
Que
Philadelphia.
no es tan lejos de donde tienen al Tiktaalik ahorita en Pensilvania.
So the peoples have complete knowledge of the serpent. They have a living knowledge of it.
Y la gente tiene conocimiento de la serpiente, es decir, conocimiento vivo.
So this living knowledge is intrinsic into the fiber of our being.
Y es intrínseco en el ser.
So that when there is some kind of activity in that area, we naturally will feel it. We will have detected it.
Y así cuando hay movimiento en una región lo vamos a detectar automáticamente.
Okay, so that's basically all the pretty much all the information that we have on this right now.
Entonces ahora sí es toda la información.
So like I said, I don't know if anybody else has any information that you could share that is pertinent.
¿Alguien más tenga algo que decir?
But if not, then basically that's all of it, Bruno. I don't know if you have any questions on any of that or anything that you want to say about any of that.
Si no, eso es todo y no sé si tengas preguntas o algo que decir, Bruno.
Pues sí tengo muchas preguntas porque no he entendido el contexto al 100%, pero lo principal sí lo entendí. Está habiendo una ruptura en el ADN de la Tierra, que está en la zona de Alaska. Cruzan dos energías, la masculina que va desde el polo sur y se junta en la zona de Canadá junto con la energía masculina y femenina. ¿Hasta ahí voy bien?
Okay, so I will have like 100 questions because I think that I didn't grasp the whole thing, but let me try and see if I can like put it forward as it should. So let's say from the beginning, you're saying there's a breakage in the DNA and this breakage is in Alaska. And this is because there is an energy that is traveling from south to north on the earth, and one is the female that goes to the part that is where you are in Canada. And the other one is also a male that is there. Am I going right till there?
100%.
Vas bien.
Muy bien. Entonces, de ahí, yo de lo primero que empecé a notar un poquito son los campos magnéticos que está habiendo, sobre todo en el polo norte que llega hasta la zona de Alaska y de Canadá. Y esas dos energías.
So from there, what I started detecting is the magnetic fields that are created in the different electric charges, let's say. And the main one that I'm detecting is on the North Pole that will extend till the region where you are in so-called Canada.
Yeah.
Las energías, yo he notado mucho que conforme la humanidad va teniendo el comportamiento, la Tierra va haciendo algo similar. Es decir, como también el ADN del ser humano se está modificando por la alimentación, la misma Tierra también, como todos somos uno, también la Tierra está teniendo esa modificación en ADN.
And what I have been noticing for a while now is that our Mother Earth's DNA is going to be also being modified by the modification of the humans. Let's say if we are being altered by the way of the foods that we eat or stuff like that, we have a direct effect upon our Mother Earth that is going to be affected herself.
Yes, and especially knowing that since 1946, that on the molecular level, that every cell on our Mother Earth has been affected through the white man's witchcraft of creating atomic bombs, of splitting the atom.
Dice, y sí, y sobre todo que si sabemos que a partir de 1946 la estructura molecular del ADN del planeta y los humanos entero fue modificada debido a la gran brujería que ocasionó la mente guerrera del hombre blanco que decidió hacer la bomba atómica y generar literalmente la destrucción del átomo y generando tanta destrucción.
Es correcto. Entonces, ahorita yo lo que vería es tratar de observar precisamente lo del ADN, a ver cómo reconstruirlo. Ahí sí me pueden compartir el teléfono de Susan para que le escriba vía WhatsApp y que ella me da un poquito más de claridad de cómo pudiera ser.
So that's right what you're saying. And so then when it comes to regards of healing the DNA of our Mother Earth, I would ask you to give me Susan's phone number so I can directly communicate with her. I would write her to her through WhatsApp just to ask her how is it that she's done it and how is it that it could be done.
Eso por un lado. Por otro lado, les digo que hay dos abuelas que tienen poder que yo creo que pueden darme algunas ideas también de qué pudiéramos hacer. Hay una que incluso utiliza mucho la telepatía y lo utiliza hasta con las estrellas, con los planetas. Ella también pudiera ser una opción.
So that on one hand, and on the other hand, as I was telling you, I know already 2 grandmothers that I'm thinking of that could also assist. And especially one of them is using a lot of telepathy. And she doesn't limit herself to use it in this level. She will use it also with stars, with the waterverse. So that might also be able to help.
Okay, perfect. If you know grandmothers or any elders, anybody who might be old enough to remember 1946,
Y eso está perfecto, sobre todo si conoces abuelitas, abuelitos que lo sean realmente en el sentido de que sean lo suficientemente ancianos como para recordar haber pasado por 1946.
I was not alive when they tested the atomic bombs in not Palo Alto, in New Mexico.
Porque Stuart no era lo suficiente, es decir, todavía no había nacido cuando hicieron las pruebas nucleares en Palo Verde,
No, it's I forget where, in New Mexico.
en Nuevo
anyways.
México.
This happened about 16 years before I was born.
Pasó como 16 años antes de que naciera.
Anyways, I know today from knowing what seeing what atomic explosions are, what they do, I can deduce that at the time in 1946 when they set off these atomic bombs in New Mexico, that people in your region were aware of it. They could see it, they could feel it, they could hear it, everything could be detected. Everywhere throughout Turtle Island, it was detectable by all the people.
Porque sabiendo la gran destrucción que esos ensayos nucleares ocasionaron, imagínate el ruido, todo lo que esto significaba, es seguro que la gente que vivía en la región e inclusive los que vivían más alejados en las circunferencias, inclusive hasta donde te encuentras tú, sabían que eso estaba ocurriendo, todo el mundo estaba hablando de eso, todo el mundo estaba sufriendo las consecuencias.
So 1946 is the time of the great craft that was expanded throughout the entire planet, but it comes right from so-called New Mexico.
Porque en 1946 es cuando se hizo esta gran, pues digamos, brujería mundial en el sentido de expandir la capacidad de destrucción, de masacre, de asesinato a nivel mundial, pero el primer ensayo de dónde empezó fue ahí, en Nuevo México.
And they done this in New Mexico because it's pretty much directly in between the two strands of DNA to keep them separated, to destroy them, keep them apart.
Y lo hicieron ahí porque es un punto que está exactamente en medio de las dos hebras del ADN. Entonces, eso se rompe ahí, garantiza que las dos hebras van a estar separadas después.
Now, this is in conjunction with something that was done not even 100 years before, but was like pretty much completed 50 years before 1946.
Y eso fue en conjunción de algo que se hizo 50 años antes, pero fue completado en el 46.
And that was the killing off of over 60 million buffalo.
Y lo que hicieron fue haber asesinado a 60 millones de búfalos.
Now, the buffalo, people just think of it of this big giant creature roaming the land.
Y digamos, imagínate los búfalos que se encontraban corriendo libremente por la tierra.
But buffaloes are to the body of our Mother Earth what coagulating blood is to your body if you got a cut.
Porque los búfalos son el equivalente de como, es decir, imagínate que te cortas la piel, tu sangre que va a salir va a ser el trabajo de coagulación. Entonces los búfalos hacían este trabajo sobre la tierra.
So, wait a minute. I wanted to share that. Okay, so I'm gonna share the screen with you here.
Entonces comparto la pantalla de nuevo.
Okay, so the strand of DNA here, the mountain range. Oh my goodness, what the hell?
Entonces, la hebra del ADN aquí en esta cadena de montañas de la Sierra Madre Oriental que se va para acá también.
So here's the eastern female male DNA.
Es el ADN femenino masculino de este lado.
And here is the western male.
Y la Sierra
DNA.
Madre Occidental es el ADN exclusivamente masculino.
And New Mexico right here, it's pretty much right in the middle of the trauma.
Y Nuevo México aquí se encuentra prácticamente en medio del trauma.
And so this is where they set off the nuclear bombs, the atomic weapons.
Y es ahí en donde hicieron sus ensayos nucleares.
But what they killed off first 50 years before was the buffalo that roamed all through this area.
Pero lo que mataron 50 años antes eran estos 60 millones de búfalos que corrían libre por toda esta área.
Now, the buffalo is what happens to the blood when you get a cut in your body. You get a cut. What happens to the blood is it coagulates.
Y los búfalos lo que ocurre es que si te cortas eso, va a coagular la sangre.
So on the body of our Mother Earth, the buffaloes are coagulating blood.
Y en el cuerpo de nuestra madre tierra, esa es la función del búfalo, ser la sangre que coagula.
And how it coagulates is through what the buffaloes do physically.
Y lo hace mediante la acción del búfalo.
As you know, all of their weight, all of their muscle, everything, all of their mass is basically in their front, like their shoulders, their front legs.
Porque todos sus movimientos, es decir, su peso se va a encontrar en sus piernas delanteras.
And their hoofs are basically like, it's like big giant razor blades.
Y sus pezuñas son básicamente como casi navajas.
When you got an animal that is basically like 2 tons, you know, like about 3,000 to 5,000 pounds.
Cuando tienes un animal que es casi de 2 toneladas.
And it's got all of its weight to its front, and how it runs is like pushing its front hoofs into the ground with all of its force. Now imagine 60 million of these running across a very soft land.
Y van a correr con toda su fuerza hacia adelante, en donde se encuentra la mayor parte de su peso, y corren así día y noche. ¿Por cuánto tiempo? Imagínate, 60 millones de ellos corriendo así de sur a norte, de norte a sur, en esa parte de la tierra.
So what that does is it softens up all of that land, what they call, what was called the Great Inland Sea.
Y lo que hace es que suaviza toda esa tierra que se llamaba el mar interno.
And think of this, in a garden, if you punched a bunch of holes into the ground, what do they call that? What is that referred to?
Y por ejemplo, en un jardín, si haces un montón de hoyos, ¿cómo se refiere eso? ¿Cómo se le llama?
That's referred to as aeration.
Como aireación.
It gets oxygen to flow faster.
Hace que el oxígeno fluya más rápido.
You know, it affects the nitrogen. It changes the constitution of the chemicals that are there in the ground.
Afecta el nitrógeno, cambia la constitución de los químicos que están ahí.
So you get 60 million of these gigantic buffaloes who do nothing except run north and south, north and south. That's all they do.
Entonces, 60 millones que van a hacer eso, nada más correr de sur a norte.
And the anomaly or the strangeness about buffaloes is that buffaloes only exist where there's buffalo grass, and that buffalo grass only exists where there's buffaloes.
Y la anomalía es que los búfalos nada más van a existir donde hay pasto para búfalo, y el pasto para búfalo nada más va a existir en donde hay búfalos.
So just think of this. Those buffaloes don't exist there normally.
Y esos búfalos no existen ahí, digamos.
What is it that makes them exist there?
Entonces, ¿qué hace que existan?
The trauma that has happened.
El trauma que ocurrió.
So normally in the blood, coagulation doesn't happen. It doesn't exist anywhere in the blood system.
Porque en el sistema sanguíneo la coagulación no existe en ningún lado.
It happens only where there is a trauma.
Hasta que haya un trauma, solamente así existe.
So hence the reason why buffaloes only go where there's buffalo grass, and buffalo grass only grows where there's buffaloes.
Y por eso los búfalos nada más están donde hay su pasto, y ese pasto nada más está donde están ellos.
And this is the reason why the white man went after the buffaloes, to kill off the buffaloes, to stop the wound, the trauma from healing.
Y es por eso que el hombre blanco fue a cazar todos esos búfalos para impedir que esta sanación ocurriese.
And you may think like in the blood coagulation, you know, we'll see a scab form. We can physically see that, we can feel it. So we think that's all that's happening. But on the microscopic level, that scab is interacting with the rest of the skin. There's something going on there. So on the body of our Mother Earth, what's going on there is the people that are following the buffaloes.
Y lo que ocurre en la tierra es que la gente va a seguir a los búfalos.
You said all of that when you just said. And so the trauma on the body of our Mother Earth is caused. It is caused. It's the white man that has caused all the trauma on our Mother Earth.
Entonces el trauma fue provocado por el hombre blanco en nuestra madre tierra.
It doesn't matter where you are, what country. It is the white man that is behind all traumas, all destruction of our Mother Earth, stemming directly out of the colonial genocide coming from Britain.
Sin importar en dónde se encuentren, en qué país de la tierra, todo viene a causa de este genocidio colonial que viene al origen de la corona británica.
And so in the big picture, I won't go too much into this, but the DNA that went haywire and broke off near Alaska and went that way, this is what created the non-native people. The corruption in the DNA, which ultimately manifests into the ultimate corruption of the white man on his prison island.
Y entonces no voy a ir a más detalle con cómo afecta esta corrupción del quiebre del ADN del otro lado del océano, porque eso es básicamente lo que genera el pensamiento no nativo. Y es eso que hace que el hombre blanco esté aislado en su isla, y es a partir de ahí que ese pensamiento se propaga.
So he has created a witchcraft way, an alchemy way of how to undo or break out of his corruption, to come and to make sure that all the traumas he is directly responsible for, that they will never heal, that our Mother Earth's living systems would break down, the immune system, the system that heals, it would break down and not function.
Y el equivalente es que como nunca se va a ser responsable de todo este genocidio colonial que ha provocado, eso genera que la capacidad de sanación que es inherente a nuestra madre tierra, todos sus sistemas, digamos, de sistema inmunitario, linfático, todo eso sean destruidos.
So as individuals, what the white man wants us to be, doesn't want us to be collective thought, to have a big intellectual capacity.
Y lo que ocurre es que impide que seamos elevados como individuos a la colectividad para tener una gran capacidad intelectual conjunta.
That from the individual level, that perspective, each individual only has extremely small thoughts.
Porque a partir de una perspectiva individual, ese individuo nada más va a tener pensamientos bien chiquitos.
Your average person can never comprehend the bigger things of which we are identifying.
Lo que le van a impedir comprender estas cosas tan grandes que se están identificando.
So where we are, we can think of serpent movement.
Y a partir de donde estamos podemos hablar del movimiento serpentino,
We can think of everything that has happened through living history.
de todo lo que ha ocurrido mediante la ella historia,
What's happening now and what we plan on making happen.
todo lo que está ocurriendo, los planes,
Where everybody else is just stuck into tiny infantile thoughts of war.
siendo que el resto está atrapado en pequeños pensamientos infantiles de guerra.
The non-native, their brain capacity is so small that we may think we're talking to somebody who has the same brain capacity. They do not have anywhere near the brain capacity of the original peoples.
Y han hecho que la gente se vuelva no nativa, es decir, tener pensamientos tan pequeñitos que están tan lejanos de lo que los pueblos originarios pueden tener.
And so when we original peoples allow our minds to be constricted or restricted by the white man's academia, we actually make ourselves just as stupid as the white man is.
Y cuando los pueblos originarios nos permitimos caer en las restricciones de la academia, nos volvemos tan estúpidos como ese mismo hombre blanco.
And when we're in the same stupidity that the white man is, then this means that our minds are consumed in the same war that the white man has created.
Y cuando caemos en esa estupidez del hombre blanco, significa que permitimos que seamos consumidos por esa misma guerra que le está consumiendo a él.
And wars of men are fought on our Mother Earth, for our Mother Earth, against our Mother Earth.
Y las guerras de los hombres son peleadas sobre nuestra madre tierra contra ella.
So when our people receive the stupid education of the white man, we become stupid like that. We become infantile. Our minds become small. We become without purpose because we are a collective that functions on a minute-to-minute basis with the reality of the serpent weaving the fabric of life throughout creation.
Y cuando nos volvemos dogmatizados por esa programación de las escuelas del hombre blanco, se pierde la capacidad de vivir segundo a segundo la vibración del tejido de la serpiente.
And so this is where we are right now, that we are in a point of transition, evolution.
Y es ahí en donde estamos ahorita, en un punto de evolución y de transición.
And at any point of evolution, we gotta know all information of our past, where we are present, and where we full trajectory, or else there will not be an evolution.
Y entonces tenemos que comprender nuestro pasado, comprender hacia dónde nos dirigimos y tener la vista puesta ahí, porque de lo contrario no va a haber evolución.
Okay, so that's maybe a little bit more complete story there.
We were just kicked out, okay?
Yeah, okay, like I was saying that we could go on and on, you know, but right now that's pretty much all the pertinent information.
Y por supuesto podemos seguir hable y hable, pero esa es realmente la información pertinente.
So clearly we are talking about very big movements upon our Mother Earth that are not just things happening like landslides. Landslides happen as a result of movements to the earth, which means a communication within the structures of our Mother Earth.
Y bueno, estamos hablando entonces de estos deslizamientos de tierra que son resultado de la comunicación de nuestra madre tierra.
Which means these movements that we might see as destructive, sort of like hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes, volcanoes, we might see these things as destructive, but these are actually corrective movements that our Mother Earth is making due to the communication that she's having from the center of the earth to everything on the surface of the earth, which is facilitated through our Mother Earth's magnetic field.
Y estos movimientos son facilitados por el campo magnético de nuestra madre tierra.
So very big thoughts here that we're dealing with, very big movements. So humans have to have an expanded collective consciousness to be able to see these things, read these things.
Y para poder ver esto, pues los humanos tienen que tener una capacidad de conciencia colectiva amplia para poderlo ver.
Okay, so anybody have any questions on this? Anything further? If not, we could wrap this up. I don't know.
Entonces, ¿hay alguien que tenga algo más que decir o preguntas al respecto? Well, actually, Bruno was explaining stuff and you started talking, explaining.
Do you hear me just ask anything else?
Entonces, ¿alguien tiene algo más que decir?
Por mi parte no, ya empiezo a imaginar cómo empezar a atacarlo, pero hay que ver. Sí.
So Bruno says, well, I think that I am starting, I comprehend better. I start to like imagine how to tackle it, but let's see how it goes. Susan, you have something to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just a couple of closing thoughts. First of all, I want to thank Bruno and Stuart's assistance in all of this. It coincides with the message I got some time ago regarding looking at what we are doing collectively and individually, making efforts and spending the rest of the time that we have before the light comes and raising our vibration. This discussion that we've had today is exactly what I'm talking about. And so I have a lot of gratitude and appreciation for you both to further this whole thing along. And as you were talking about, yeah, go ahead.
Entonces, bueno, primero quiero agradecerle a Bruno y a Stuart por esta interacción, porque esto es lo que ella estaba esperando ya desde hace un rato. Es coincidente con lo que ella recibió como mensaje hace tiempo de que ahorita nuestras energías tienen que realmente enfocarse en analizar lo que estamos haciendo como individuos y como colectividad, y que es necesario que elevemos nuestras vibraciones de forma colectiva para poder ayudar a facilitar esa transición, porque vamos a una gran luz y para poder vivir o aceptar, vamos a tener que estar bien conscientes de lo que esto implica.
Can you hear me? I went out for a second here.
Yeah, we can.
Can you? Okay. I also would like to make mention, as you were speaking about the buffalo and the coagulation of blood, I was thinking for the last couple of weeks that my bleed out for the last 3 months now may be related to that exactly, because my blood has not coagulated. And I think through the process of doing this, a lot of these things are coming to light, and I'm going to be looking in that direction a whole lot more than what I have. So again, miigwech to both of you.
Y aparte de eso, quiere comentar que a nivel personal, Susan, ha estado sufriendo una especie de sangrado interno ya por unos 3 meses. Entonces, ahora con la plática del búfalo que Stuart acaba de dar, ella asocia que es exactamente eso lo que le está ocurriendo, que su sangre no es capaz de coagular. Entonces eso le da una mayor comprensión de su salud personal y agradece por esto. Y de nuevo, para cerrar, volver a agradecer a ambos por esta interacción y este trabajo que hacen juntos.
Susan, have you been diagnosed as being anemic?
¿Se te ha diagnosticado como anémica, Susan?
No, but I'm going to be I'm going for a full blood workup. I've had to tell the doctors what I need instead of them telling me. It's been a complete reversal of roles in this whole issue with mine for the last 3 months. It's been a lot of stress trying to get some answers. There is no diagnosis. There's a guess, and that's as far as it's gotten. And I guess during this whole process, it's been forcing me to look at this whole thing a lot more deeply than I anticipated. And today, I think I made the connection. So I'm going to be looking into that possibility. For a while now, I've been thinking, well, maybe this bleed out has to do with my efforts to heal our mother's DNA, and the fact that no one has come up with a diagnosis, and I've been receiving very poor health care as a result. I've had to fight with doctors and referrals for the last 2 months now. And now I'm telling them, instead of them telling me, I'm telling them what I need. And finally, I think they're beginning to listen.
Entonces Susan dice que no ha habido diagnóstico y que de hecho, bueno, está preparándose para un estudio a profundidad de sangre, pero lo único que le han dicho son como casi adivinanzas. Entonces es más bien ella diciéndole a los doctores de qué se trata el asunto, porque los doctores no saben nada. Y ahora de nuevo con esta plática como que hoy finalmente hizo la conexión en su ser de lo que puede ser, entonces va a empezar a explorar esta posibilidad y bueno, esa es la cuestión.
Okay, well, as you know, that we've been identifying that whatever is the traumas that our Mother Earth is experiencing, that these are vibrations released out of the earth, and that is going directly into every woman on earth.
Bueno, como sabemos, hemos estado diciendo que nuestra madre tierra va a estar liberando frecuencias por todo el trauma que ha recibido y que estas frecuencias van a ser recibidas por cada mujer en la tierra.
So just to bring this into perspective a little,
Y para que esto sea puesto en perspectiva un poco,
within the great law of peace, where the mothers are the authority, there has been given to them the deer antlers as the symbolage of their authority.
dentro de la gran ley de la paz, en donde las madres son la autoridad, se les ha otorgado utilizar los cuernos de venado como símbolo de autoridad.
That they place upon the brow of the eligible and qualified chieftainship title.
Entonces son ellas las únicas que tienen la capacidad de poder poner ese tocado en la cabeza del hombre que seleccionen para que les represente a título de jefatura.
And the reason why the deer antlers is because right at the base of the deer antler here, there is a tiny little hole that goes right into the antler, and it goes right behind the eye socket.
¿Y por qué son estos cuernos de venado? Es porque cada venado macho tiene un tubo conductor a partir de la punta de los cuernos que va dirigido directamente hacia lo interno del ojo, la parte trasera.
So this tells you that deers have eyes that they can see through the same way as you.
Entonces, bueno, obviamente los venados tienen ojos que pueden ver como cualquier humano.
But then they have these antennas
Pero,
that pick up messages, signals, the Earth's magnetic field.
pero también tienen estas antenas que van a captar los campos electromagnéticos de nuestra madre tierra.
And it's channeled right to the back of the eye, which is then carried with the visual that the eye receives, that is then transmitted to the brain. So this gives you gives the deer, of course, an extra vision that you and I cannot detect.
Y esto es canalizado a esta recepción al ojo por la parte interna del venado, que le va a dar una visión mucho más amplia y clara de lo que uno se puede imaginar como humano.
So deers or any antlers, buffaloes, monarch butterflies, they all have these antennas that pick up the Earth's magnetic field.
Entonces, todos los animales que tengan cuernos o antenas, por ejemplo, las mariposas monarca, los venados, los bisontes, todos van a captar ese campo magnético de nuestra madre tierra.
And this is what enables monarch butterflies to travel here to our area in two lifetimes, but then to get back to where they come from in one lifetime. That one lifetime has no way of knowing where it came from because it was 2 lifetimes ago.
Y esto es lo que permite que una mariposa monarca, por ejemplo, pueda ir hacia el sur en un viaje, pero para volver se necesitan 2 generaciones. Es este registro en su ADN del campo magnético que le permite recordar cómo llegar.
That monarch butterfly that's picking up, that's flying back in 1 generation, knows where to go because it's what the Earth's magnetic field, the messages which guides all migratory animals.
Y eso es lo que guía a cada animal migratorio que recoge ese campo magnético.
And so this is the Earth's magnetic field.
Este es el campo magnético de nuestra madre tierra.
We know that it leaves the so-called South Pole and it travels across the land into the North Pole.
Y sabemos que sale del sur, del polo sur, y regresa por el norte.
And then it goes back through the Earth where the information that it just picked up is processed.
Y luego pasa por el interior de nuestra madre tierra, en donde la información es procesada.
And so it knows that, well, let's say if it was you, a human being, it knows that this year or an hour ago or yesterday, you were 6 foot tall.
Y sabe que si ayer ustedes medían 6 pies,
So then it takes that information, travels out of the South Pole and comes back around and adds the next bit of life onto where it just left off, making you 6 foot 1 inches tall.
Toma la información, vuelve de donde salió y ahora les hace 6 pies 1.
So these different layers of the Earth's magnetic field is information.
Y estas diferentes capas del campo magnético son información.
Now, everyone on Earth is basically subjected just to this. Humans are subjected just to this first rung.
Y los humanos son sujetos a solamente esta capa interna.
But all migratory animals that have antlers, such as this, picks up every level of the Earth's magnetic field.
Pero todos los animales migratorios reciben el campo magnético de nuestra madre tierra.
And so this means that your average non-native person on Earth, they're limited to a very limited amount of knowledge, just one layer of the Earth's magnetic field.
Entonces, en comparación a ellos, el resto está limitado a la información que reciben.
But migratory animals and the original people are subjected to and living the reality of every level of our Earth's magnetic field.
Pero los animales migratorios y los pueblos originarios que entienden esto y lo aplican están viviendo con las otras capas del campo magnético.
Now, migratory animals are experiencing that again due to their antenna.
Entonces, los animales, gracias a sus antenas,
Humans are experiencing that due to the legal process of how women are charged with this managing the sacred this sacred element of the deer antlers that they put upon the brow of the eligible male candidate.
y los humanos, gracias a cómo la autoridad de las madres coloca este tocado en los hombres elegibles.
And so that person is then picking up all levels of information, all levels of our Mother Earth's magnetic field.
Y esa persona recibe todos los niveles del campo magnético de nuestra madre tierra.
Which makes us the only complete thinkers on the planet.
Lo que nos hace pensar de forma total en el planeta.
And so through law, the mother's guiding and controlling this process of thought.
Y el hecho de que sean las madres las que controlan ese proceso de pensamiento
Establishes within the people filtering up to the people of all information, all knowledge.
establece un filtro del conocimiento hacia la gente.
Through the great law of peace, the establishment of male chiefs, female chiefs, clan mothers, having the power and authority to manage this process.
Mediante la gran ley de la paz, que son las madres de clan que van a elegir a jefes, a hombres que van a representarlas y que van a asegurarse de que este proceso viviente continúe.
So this means any people, any of our people who are part of this process, which means you,
Y de nuestra gente, quien haga parte de este proceso, es decir, ustedes,
are exposed to more than what we are aware of.
están expuestos a más de lo que pueden estar conscientes.
So this is taking you to contemplate things, energies, knowledge that are higher levels of thought than what your average person on earth can ever even imagine.
Y esto les lleva a contemplar asuntos que otras personas ni siquiera imaginarían que hay que pensar en eso.
And so when you're on those higher levels of thought, of reality, then you can see the truths, you can feel the truths, the energy that our Mother Earth is feeling.
Y cuando están en esos niveles pueden ver los niveles de verdad que nuestra madre tierra está experimentando.
On this first level, where your average person is, it's all just stupid, dumb, infantile thoughts. This is the non-native world.
Porque en este primera capa son pensamientos estúpidos, infantiles. Este es el mundo del no nativo.
You know, they got their heads up their rear ends of war,
Porque tienen su cabeza metida en la guerra
so they are stupid. They are stuck in stupidity.
y eso los atora en la estupidez.
They can't contemplate higher levels of thought.
No pueden considerar formas de pensar más profundas.
And so they can't even function there.
Y entonces ni siquiera pueden funcionar ahí.
They will shy away from it. If there's a problem there, They'll run away from it.
Y si hay un problema, mejor van a echarse a correr.
But you, on the other hand, are absorbing these things.
Pero ustedes están observando esto
You're experiencing them and confronting them head on.
y lo están viendo y confrontando con la cabeza derecho.
And so there are levels of stress that you are exposed to that your average person, they're just too dumb to be able to be aware of these levels of stress. And so they won't feel the effects of that stress.
Entonces hay niveles de estrés que ellos no van a poder considerar porque no están al tanto.
So what you need to do is compensate. Think of it like a scale that you're putting maybe a little bit too much weight on one end and it's bringing you down. You need to compensate with medicines.
Entonces hay que compensar con medicinas, es decir, si estás poniendo mucho en un lado, hay que compensarlo.
Compensate with a medicine that will strengthen your blood, that will actually also like tighten up, like bring things closer together, tighten up your muscles, because what's happening is the stress is causing a loosening, like a coming undone.
Porque puede ser una medicina que pueda limpiar la sangre y de hecho que la pueda como a consolidar. Es decir, que también te puede ayudar a consolidar tus músculos porque ese estrés está ocasionando como que todo sea esparcido, como desintegrado.
Now, this is if you view the bleeding as a bad thing.
Esto es si ves el sangrado como algo malo.
So if it is a bad thing, then you take medicines, whatever medicines necessary, like I said, to strengthen your blood, but also like something that tightens up your muscles to pull things together.
Y si es malo, entonces eso, tomar una medicina como para hacer que tus músculos se vuelvan más fuertes.
But it might be a good thing.
Pero puede que el sangrado sea bueno.
So if you view it as a good thing, if it's determined to be a good thing, then that approach of taking medicines to compensate in that area, it would then be a different medicine that you would have to take.
Entonces, si lo ves como bueno, el momento de compensar tendría que ser con otro tipo de medicina.
So this is where, of course, Bear Clan medicine people could help you.
Y es ahí en donde la gente del clan de la medicina te podría ayudar.
Bruno is linked into that. We all know his power and his energy with medicine.
Y por supuesto, Bruno está directamente ligado a eso. Todos conocemos su poder medicinal.
I can confirm that because I experienced it firsthand.
Y yo lo puedo confirmar porque lo experimenté de primera mano.
So I would say the first step is to determine if that bleeding is a good thing or a bad thing.
Entonces yo diría, para empezar, habría que determinar si el sangrado es algo bueno o malo.
And it wouldn't hurt to get that diagnosis if you are anemic.
Y no haría ningún problema el saber si realmente eres anémica o no.
Because then what would be left is either it is caused or else it's something that just happened to you.
Porque si no, sería algo que o sea, determinar si fue algo que fue provocado o algo que te pasó.
And then that'd be a way to understand it.
Y así se puede entender.
And of course, when you understand it, easier to work with.
Y cuando lo entiendes, pues mucho más fácil trabajar con él.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if anybody has anything else to say on this to address on it. If not, we'll move on.
Y no sé si alguien más tenga algo que decir al respecto, si no vamos a continuar. Elsa just raised her hand.
Let's go to Elsa.
Okay, I am Elsa Terrorablisno, granddaughter of Leah, great-granddaughter of Lenina. I am from Wabanaki Nation and in Life Givers Nation. I'm a temporary Bear Clan member.
Elsa se presenta de forma matrilineal, mencionando el nombre de su mami, de su abuelita y diciendo que en la Nación de Dadoras de Vida es miembro temporal del clan del oso.
So I just want to come back on what you were just said about the blood thickening or not, and also the way it can be healed with medicine.
Y quiero hablar un poco de lo que acabas de decir, Stuart, en relación al espesor de la sangre y si puede ser curado o no con medicinas.
So just to also talk about my individual experience.
Y para compartir mi experiencia individual,
Yesterday, well, 2 days ago, I started urinary infection, urinary tract infection.
hace un par de días comencé con una infección en el tracto urinario.
So this means I have to go to the bathroom to be very often.
Y esto significa que tengo que ir muy seguido al baño.
And I was wondering, why did I add that? Where did I got that? But through research, I found that it's almost very common. Like I can have that through viruses, cold viruses, or in life givers when you're about to have your moon.
Y me preguntaba de dónde venía eso, pero descubrí haciendo investigación que es algo muy común, que las dadoras de vida sobre todo pueden tenerlo antes de que vaya a llegarle su luna.
So yesterday I was struggling with this.
Y ayer estaba combatiéndolo.
So through Life Givers Nation and even Saturday Night Zoom, it was calling me to the bathroom often.
Entonces, en el Zoom de ayer, del Consejo de la Nación de Dadoras de Vida, incluso el sábado en la noche me estaba llamando constantemente al baño.
But also during the Life Givers Nation, my moon started.
Pero también durante el Consejo de la Nación, mi luna comenzó.
So at the same time, when my moon started, it's getting less and less important for the urinary tract infection.
Y en cuanto mi luna llegó, la infección urinaria se volvió menos importante.
So right now I'm dealing less and less with that, feeling more and more comfortable.
Y ahora me siento más cómoda.
But I'm tired too.
Pero estoy cansada. What was the last thing that you said?
And this made me think about my tension or my presence during the Life Givers Nation or Saturday night classes where I felt more dispersed, my energy, my focus, it was looser. Like used to work just then.
Y en todo este tiempo que tuve la infección, sentía que mi enfoque estaba mucho más disperso, como dijiste, Stuart.
So this made me what you just said just put words on my experience.
Y lo que acabas de decir, pues me hizo esta conexión justamente.
Elsa, have you ever have you ever had a urinary tract infection before?
¿Y habías tenido una infección urinaria antes?
No, that's new for me. I just know that the cranberry juice is really good.
No, es algo nuevo para mí, solamente sé que el jugo de arándanos es muy bueno.
Okay, this is where we would need to have different voices of women who have experienced urinary tract infections in the past.
Es ahí en donde sería bueno tener voces de mujeres que hayan vivido infecciones urinarias en el pasado.
Now, I know that it is common in pregnant women,
Yo sé que es común en mujeres en cinta,
that a lot of pregnant women experience that urinary tract infection while they're carrying a child.
que lo van a pasar cuando están portando un bebé.
And so it would be good to know from women who have experienced that, to know what that experience is. Now, that's one thing when you're pregnant. You can't really use that as a gauge, like if for other people who've had urinary tract infections without being pregnant.
Y sería bueno conocer esas voces porque sería algo distinto saber acerca de las infecciones urinarias si las mujeres no han estado en cinta.
So we would need women who experienced that while they were pregnant, and then any women who have experienced urinary tract infections outside of being pregnant.
Entonces necesitaríamos a mujeres que vivieron esta infección urinaria mientras estaban en cinta o no.
And then this way we'd be able to have like a proper gauge as to be able to compare with you and say like what Susan, like what she's experiencing. Doesn't sound like the same thing, but it's the same kind of, maybe it could be like the same cause or coming from the same place.
Y eso a lo mejor tiene relación con lo que le está ocurriendo a Susan, and yes, it has a relationship.
What?
Well, it's because Susan, do you want to go ahead, Susan?
Sure. I just want to just briefly say, my experience for the last 3 months, it started with a urinary tract infection. And that's how the bleed out was from is from the urethra.
Entonces nada más confirmar lo que Elsa está diciendo, que hace 3 meses todo este sangrado empezó con una infección urinaria y efectivamente el origen de todo esto es a partir de la uretra.
Susan, did you ever experience a urinary tract infection in the past?
¿Y tú, Susan, habías tenido una infección urinaria antes?
Many times, I started my moon when I was 10, and my moon ended when I was 50.
Muchas veces antes, mi luna empezó cuando yo tenía 10 años y terminó cuando tenía 50.
So is that urinary tract infection for women, is it more like associated around moon times?
Y esa infección urinaria para las mujeres es más cerca a cuando van a tener su tiempo de luna.
Not necessarily, although I consider myself somewhat of an exception. My moons were always 9 days long, and I was bleeding out from not only my birth canal, but from my nose as well. They thought I was going to die.
Bueno, no necesariamente, pero yo puedo decir que soy considerada una excepción porque mi tiempo de luna duraba hasta 9 días y era tan intenso que no sangraba solamente por donde sangramos, sino que también sangraba por mi nariz. Entonces, muchas veces pensaron que yo iba incluso a fallecer.
Okay, so I know that women who are pregnant are prone to urinary tract infections.
Ok, entonces yo sé que mujeres en cinta van a tener más tendencia a tener infecciones urinarias.
I know that it is there for women while they are within their moon time, meaning like what you said, from the time you're 10 to 50.
Y sé que va a estar más presente durante su tiempo de luna, como dijiste, de tus 10 a los 50 años.
But I also know that it is there in little children, young girls like toddlers.
Pero que puede ocurrirles a niñas pequeñitas, por ejemplo, de 2, 3 años.
And baby girls, I know, as a matter of fact, have been known, little baby girls have been known to get urinary tract infections.
E inclusive bebecitas.
So what you just revealed also, Susan, is that now that while you're out of your moon time and you're having this, so it would seem that no matter what, it's through the whole spectrum of life givers that are prone to it.
Y entonces lo que tú acabas de revelar es que es todo el espectro de las doadoras de vida lo que ocurre.
Now, given the fact that it happens to all these different levels, all these different ages, but is more prone during pregnancy, I'll go as far to say that it might be partial cause, might be due to stress, due to all that is flowing through the women from our Mother Earth's energies.
Entonces yo diría que sería muy fácil deducir que es todo relacionado al estrés, porque las doadoras de vida van a captar todo lo que está fluyendo por nuestra madre tierra.
It might be a side effect of colonization.
Puede que sea también un efecto secundario de la colonización.
Where people might say, hey, come on, that's crazy.
Y la gente puede que diga, ay, ¿qué te pasa? Es una locura eso.
But we do know, as a matter of fact, that a side effect of colonization upon native people is, in fact, diabetes. It is caused.
Porque sabemos que es un hecho, que un efecto secundario de la colonización es la diabetes, porque esta enfermedad es provocada.
So what we're identifying when we say colonization, it's the clash of cultures.
Y cuando identificamos colonización, es un conflicto entre culturas.
So if you could imagine like your liver and your kidney separated by all the stuff that separates them, but then imagine like all of a sudden they're merging. And so then you have the culture of the liver transferring to the kidney and vice versa. And therefore right there at those flashpoints would be illnesses, from the trauma of the clashing of cultures.
Por ejemplo, el hígado y el riñón que se encuentran y empiezan a transferirse células del uno del otro, pero como son dos culturas distintas, entran en conflicto.
And again, since women are the most sensitive to what is being released from our Mother Earth, flowing right through you, traumas being inflicted upon our Mother Earth might translate into human life givers receiving or experiencing urinary tract infection.
Y como las mujeres de nuevo van a recibir siempre las consecuencias grandes de la colonización, de todo el estrés que es infligido por este mismo proceso de la colonización en nuestra madre tierra, pues ellas recibiendo eso van a sacar el estrés de todas las formas que sea posible.
Because all waters on the earth end up getting filtered through use.
Porque todas las aguas de la tierra son eventualmente filtradas por ustedes.
All the blood that each of you, the bleeding that each life giver experiences each moon, they might view this as their own individual blood that is leaving their system. But don't forget that blood is happening as a result of the eggs that have been placed inside of you from your grandmother when you're in the womb of your mother. So this is sky woman movements. So every life giver on earth, their moon together collectively is the moon of our Mother Earth. So she filters that blood, all liquids, through you.
Y cada mujer puede pensar que, bueno, su luna es de ella y de nadie más, pero no hay que olvidar que los huevitos, los ovarios de donde salen los óvulos, fueron puestos ahí por su abuelita en el vientre materno de su madre. Entonces, Esto es algo que viene ancestralmente de la línea de sangre materna y es algo que es creado dentro del saco del fluido amniótico y es esa agua que crea esa luna.
And so let's add on to that reality of how that in all the waters, the blood of Mother Earth, that there's microplastics everywhere. So microplastics are filtering through every woman's living system that ends up filtering it out through your urinary tract.
Y ahora si consideramos que debido a ese mismo proceso hay ahora microplásticos en todos lados, que esos microplásticos van a estar en el agua y que van a ser transferidos al cuerpo de cada mujer.
I would imagine that this would make a huge difference into what is happening in our own internal systems, knowing that there's microplastics flowing through there where it's normally just water. Microplastics would be abrasiveness in the flow.
Imaginaría que estos microplásticos van a afectar tanto que van a generar interacciones abrasivas, tensas en el flujo.
So it would be interesting, just for the sake of knowledge, if women were able to share collectively each of their knowledge or each of their experiences with urinary tract infections at the different ages, what it felt like, you know, what they thought it was attributed to, and what they're experiencing now.
Y sería interesante que cada mujer pudiese compartir acerca de estas experiencias que viven.
This is what it means when we say, return our mothers back to power so they can manage all of our people properly once again.
Y es así cuando decimos que pedimos que nuestras madres puedan volver a su sitio de autoridad que les corresponde para que puedan manejar a la gente de nuevo como se debe.
That the mothers would manage such crucial information like that is flowing through all the women. So the mothers in a proper Longhouse setting, that the clan mothers having access then to all of the younger women within their clan, able to come together in an instance or to pick their minds on any issue. You have instantly within a proper Longhouse setting, access to information, statistics that can only be tapped into through a proper clan mother, woman of the clan relationship.
Y las madres en tal manejo en el sistema de la gran ley de la paz y sus clanes que si hay algo que está emergiendo en una mujer, se podría llamar inmediatamente a todas las mujeres para poder compartir conocimiento, establecer planes de acción a qué hacer al respecto inmediatamente.
So this might be something for the Life Givers Nations for use to start to address.
Y esto puede que sea algo que la nación de dadores de vida haya que empezar a hablar de esto.
Maybe even just to put out like a survey to people, put out a questionnaire. What's your experience with this? We're gathering information.
Inclusive nada más hacer una pregunta y decir, ok, estamos recolectando información. ¿Cuál es su experiencia en relación a esto?
You know that this is the kind of information that doctors in the medical industry would never care about. They would never gather information like this. Women might talk to them about it, but it's not important to them. What's important to them is their science, and their science doesn't quantify knowledge like this.
Saben que los doctores no van a hacer ese tipo de trabajo, es decir, no van a preocuparse por las causas de una enfermedad y poderlo entender a la raíz, y ese es el trabajo que las mujeres hacían.
Okay, anyway, so this is really interesting. Anybody else, if he's got anything else on this, any further? If not, for the discussion today, then if not, then we'll move on.
Entonces, si hay algo más que alguien quiera decir al respecto, adelante. Si no, con esta conversación, pues podríamos continuar después.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on. And actually, there's nothing to move on to. So what we'll do is we'll just close up for today. If there's nothing that nobody had, this was already asked. So let's see, any information coming up? Nothing, no information, just as a reminder, we're coming up to the stirring of the ashes. It's coming up really fast, so you know, everybody knows what they gotta do. You have any unfinished business, you better go out and correct these things.
Entonces, ya no hay nada más que teníamos que tratar el día de hoy, entonces vamos a cerrar. Si hay alguna información, es que ya estamos muy cerca de el remover de las cenizas, entonces si hay algún asunto que sea no resuelto todavía, es el momento de ir a hacerlo.
Any negative relationship that you may have experienced with anyone on any level in this previous year, if you did not resolve it, you must go and resolve this now. You only have approximately 40 days left.
Y si ustedes tuvieron una experiencia negativa con alguien que no fue resuelta, les quedan unos 40 días para resolverlo.
Let's say if, I don't know, maybe you had an argument with somebody over something stupid, no reason, and you just left it at that. You better go and address this and apologize and correct it so that you're not carrying animosities or that negative with you into the next cycle.
Entonces, si hay algo que provocó algo negativo con una persona, pues más les vale que vayan y se disculpen o hagan lo que sea necesario para resolverlo, para que este tipo de animosidad no sea llevado hacia el próximo ciclo.
And this is where mothers get authority.
Y es ahí en donde las madres obtienen su autoridad.
Because the mothers have the authority to direct their children to address any unfinished business that they may have had within this previous cycle.
Porque las madres tienen la capacidad de dirigir a sus hijas e hijos a resolver asuntos que no lo han sido.
Okay, so like we said, nothing else, so we'll just call it a day. We'll close up for today.
Entonces, como dijimos, bueno, no hay nada más que decir, entonces por hoy vamos a cerrar. Wagatsanuni, agwego, gunungwe danorunungwe skatne, agwets dano condor, katsanhaya. We are happy that the life givers and the life protectors came to this council between the condor and the eagle. Estamos, tanto las dadoras de vida como los protectores de vida pudieron venir a este consejo entre el cóndor y el águila. Está Soco, Axota Yundajes fue Panchita, de Ganasata Neda Yundajes fue Celsa, Zapotecnia Hunzagi, Mexican Wanerista, Yunatayo Yankinastadista, Anotaharaga Ganosesle, Yangahaga Ganamuage, Yawisni Hunzagi, Onowaragi Minoge, Deiti Nuerazo Garumwa, Yankeso, Yankisata, Santaneca Garaqua, Yankinistania Hunzagi, Danagüe, Kundum Hetzeratawats, Taranyawago, Sawiskara, Sini, Ganya Taragero, we give our greetings and thanks for allowing us to be here and gathered to the spirit of the creation, Sky Woman, to our Grandma Moon that is coming to her new moon phase very soon. So she's already renewing us. So we give thanks for that. We also give thanks to our Mama Earth and to all of the life givers in all of their shapes and forms, to the twins that assist us in the balance, to all of the waters, all of the medicines, and all of our relations in good spirit. Le agradecemos al espíritu de la creación, de la mujer cielo, por habernos permitido encontrarnos aquí en este consejo, a nuestra abuelita luna, que ya está en periodo de fase de luna nueva y por lo tanto ya nos está renovando con su sangre limpia, renovada. Y también le agradecemos a nuestra mami tierra y a todas las dadoras de vida por la capacidad de dar vida. Le agradecemos a los gemelos por el equilibrio, a todas las aguas y todas las medicinas y a todas nuestras relaciones en buen espíritu. Yadiñato, Yonatayuni, Rodiscaroge, Yagunsese de Ganawida, Huego Diane, Danorodiane, de Yohagio, Gani Gurillo de Nogayandawana, Gayanara Saragoa, de Gini de Yohade, Ayunki Atagenha, Andawaron, Hetzeran, Etanaron, Quatzerowana, Origuillo, Skana, Gasastansera, the Nogari Warishunsera, Gasastansera, Ngunungwe, the Nogayandawana, Gasastansera, Runungwe, the Noaweka Watsire, Aweka Sanhayan. We also give thanks to the spirit of the plants, the turtle, wolf, and bear, and we are aiming to reconstitute whatever has been broken there so that the councils can come back. So we always give thanks to the female and the male people of the past, the present, and the future that are walking to preserve the great law of peace and to always abide by the Turo Wampum, and we ask them to assist us in bringing back the huge love, the truth, the peace, power, and righteousness back to the people so that we can, as life givers in balance in their true identity with the balance of the true identity of the life protectors, rise to bring our counsels back so that we find solutions for the immediate issues that are facing us right now. Le agradecemos también al espíritu de los clanes, la tortuga, el lobo y el oso, y por reconstituir lo que ha sido roto entre ellos para que podamos lograr que nuestros consejos se levanten de nuevo. Entonces le agradecemos a todas las mujeres y los hombres de paz que caminaron, que están caminando y que caminarán en el rostro de nuestra Madre Tierra. Les pedimos que nos ayuden a hacer que el espíritu de la gran ley de la paz se mantenga vivo, así como el del wampum de 2 vías, para que podamos asegurarnos que el gran amor, la verdad, la paz, el poder de nuestros ancestros del buen espíritu y la rectitud en el camino estén siempre presentes para que en las mujeres, las verdaderas dadoras de vida en su identidad, con los protectores de vida en su verdadera identidad, seamos capaces de hacer que los consejos vuelvan y encontremos las soluciones a todos los problemas que nos están llenando en estos momentos. Y si hay algún obstáculo a eso, siempre lo empujamos en los 3 niveles de la existencia. And if there's obstacles to that, we always push them on the 3 levels of the existence. Eres out, eres out, eres out.
Yeah, now we'll go, everybody. Don't see your duck.
Yeah.
All right.